Maya Thompson kept every rejection letter in a folder labeled Fuel. Rejection number 1 came from Sterling Publishing in January 2015. While your writing shows promise, we don't feel the market is ready for this type of story. Rejection number 7 from Lighthouse Books. The protagonist's voice feels too specific to resonate with mainstream readers. Rejection number 19 from Horizon Press. We're looking for more universal themes. Maya knew what they meant. They meant her protagonist, a young black woman navigating corporate America while dealing with family expectations and racial microaggressions, was too ethnic. That her story about a working-class family in Atlanta was too specific. That readers, white readers they meant, wouldn't relate. But Maya kept writing, kept polishing, kept submitting. She'd spent 3 years on this novel, The Weight of Dreams. Written it while working full-time as a marketing coordinator, while commuting 2 hours daily, while caring for her aging mother. She'd poured her heart into every page, creating characters so real she could hear their voices, building a world so vivid she could smell her grandmother's kitchen and feel the humidity of southern summers. The story mattered. She knew it mattered. By rejection number 30, Maya's confidence was cracking. Maybe they were right. Maybe she wasn't good enough. Maybe readers really wouldn't care about stories like hers. Then came rejection number 47, Chapman and Wells Publishing, one of New York's most prestigious houses. Maya had saved them for last, her dream publisher, the one that published the authors she'd grown up reading. The query response came fast, too fast. Ms. Thompson, thank you for your submission. Unfortunately, your manuscript doesn't fit our current list. Best of luck placing it elsewhere. Editorial team generic, copy-pasted, the kind of form rejection that didn't even pretend to have read past the first page. Maya should have left it there, should have taken the rejection and moved on. But something, frustration, desperation, 3 years of her life poured into a manuscript no one would read, made her do something reckless. She called Chapman and Wells directly. "I'd like to speak with someone about my submission," she told the receptionist. "Were you working with a specific editor?" "No, but I'd like to understand why my manuscript was rejected." "Ma'am, we receive thousands of submissions. The editors don't have time to provide individual feedback. I'm not asking for extensive notes. I'm asking for 5 minutes with someone who can tell me honestly why my story isn't worth reading." The receptionist sighed. "Hold, please." 3 minutes of hold music. Then, "This is Victoria Ashford, Senior Acquisitions Editor. I understand you have questions about a rejection?" Victoria Ashford. Maya had researched every editor at Chapman and Wells. Victoria was their star, credited with discovering 3 best-selling authors in the past 5 years, known for her eye for commercial fiction. "Ms. Ashford, I submitted a manuscript 6 weeks ago. The rejection was generic, and I'm trying to understand." What was the title? The Weight of Dreams, contemporary fiction about, I remember it. Victoria's tone shifted from polite to dismissive. "Look, Ms. Thompson, I'm going to be more honest with you than I should be. Your writing is technically competent, the story is well-structured, but it's not marketable." "Why not?" "Because readers, the readers who actually buy books in the volume we need to make publishing profitable, they want escape. They want characters they can relate to. Your protagonist, your setting, your themes, they're too niche." "Too niche," Maya repeated flatly. "Let me be frank. I saw your author bio. I know you're coming from a specific perspective, and that's fine for certain markets. There are smaller publishers who specialize in diverse voices, but Chapman and Wells publishes for mainstream America, and mainstream America isn't looking for stories about—" Victoria paused, choosing her words carefully. "Your demographic." Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. "My demographic? African-American women, yes. It's just demographics, Ms. Thompson. Nothing personal. The numbers don't support investing in books that only appeal to a narrow audience segment. You need mass appeal to be a bestseller, and your story is too, let's say, specific to achieve that. So you're saying readers won't buy books about black women. I'm saying the market research shows that cross-demographic appeal is essential for commercial success. Books need to speak to everyone, not just one group. Your novel is very..." Victoria searched for the word ethnic. It reads like it was written for a black audience by a black author. That's limiting. Have you read books by Toni Morrison, Maya Angelou, James Baldwin? Those are literary fiction, different market. We publish commercial fiction, romance, thriller, women's fiction, and in those categories, the data is clear. You need broader appeal. Maya's hand tightened on the phone. So what you're telling me is that I should write about white people to be successful. I'm telling you that if you want to be published by a house like Chapman and Wells, you need to think about commercial viability. Write something more universal, less focused on race and culture, more focused on themes that everyone can connect to: love, ambition, family dynamics without the... Victoria paused again. Cultural specificity. Thank you for your honesty, Ms. Ashford. I hope you don't take this personally. It's just business. The publishing industry is brutal, and we have to make decisions based on what sells. If you're serious about being an author, you might consider writing under a pseudonym, maybe adjusting your protagonist's background to be more ambiguous. That could help. Write white characters under a white-sounding name. I didn't say that exactly, but that's what you meant. Victoria's tone cooled. Ms. Thompson, I've given you more time than I give most unpublished authors. I suggest you take this feedback constructively. The publishing world is what it is. You can either adapt to it or stay unpublished. Your choice. She hung up. Maya sat in her cubicle at the marketing firm, surrounded by coworkers who had no idea she'd just been told her voice, her story, her perspective was too ethnic to matter. She opened her laptop and pulled up the manuscript. 3 years of work, 78,000 words, characters she loved, a story that needed to be told. Victoria Ashford had said Maya needed to choose, adapt or stay unpublished. Victoria was wrong. There was a third option. That night, Maya researched self-publishing. Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing, create space for print, formatting requirements, cover design, marketing strategies. The traditional publishing gatekeepers had rejected her 47 times. They'd told her that her story was too specific, too ethnic, too niche, that readers like her didn't exist in large enough numbers to matter. Maya was about to prove them catastrophically wrong. She would self-publish The Weight of Dreams. She would market it herself. She would find her readers, the ones Victoria Ashford claimed didn't exist in sufficient numbers. And if she succeeded, when she succeeded, she would remember every word Victoria had said, every dismissal, every suggestion that she make herself smaller, whiter, more palatable to mainstream America. Maya pulled out her folder of rejections. 47 letters telling her she wasn't good enough, wasn't marketable enough, wasn't universal enough. She added Victoria's business card to the folder. Fuel, she whispered to herself. 7 years later, Maya Thompson would be one of the best-selling authors in America. The Weight of Dreams would sell 20 million copies. Netflix would pay $12 million for the rights. She would have 3 books on the New York Times bestseller list simultaneously. And Chapman and Wells Publishing, Victoria Ashford's prestigious house, would be drowning in debt, bleeding authors, desperate for acquisition. Maya would buy them, every asset, every contract, every office. And Victoria Ashford would learn exactly what happened when you told someone their voice didn't matter. Their story wasn't universal. Their perspective was too ethnic to sell. The lesson would be expensive, humiliating, and absolutely unforgettable. But first, Maya had a book to publish. Lee Learning Everything About Self-Publishing. Cover design principles, Amazon algorithms, reader targeting on social media, book blogger outreach, the mechanics of the industry that traditional publishers controlled but rarely explained. She found a cover designer on Fiverr, a talented artist who understood exactly what Maya wanted. A cover that celebrated blackness rather than hiding it, that screamed, "This book is for us," rather than apologizing for its existence. She hired a freelance editor, not to make the story more universal, but to polish what was already there. She formatted the manuscript herself, learning software and specifications, making mistakes, and fixing them. And on September 15, 2015, 6 months after Victoria Ashford had told her the market wasn't ready for her story, Maya Thompson published The Weight of Dreams on Amazon. She priced it at $3.99. She had no advertising budget, no publisher publicity machine, no bookstore distribution. She had her story, her social media account, and absolute certainty that Victoria Ashford was wrong. The first day, she sold 12 copies, all to friends and family. The second day, 43 copies, some people she didn't know. By day 7, Maya was selling 200 copies daily. Reader reviews started appearing. Finally, a book that speaks to my experience. This is the story I've been waiting for. Why isn't this everywhere? By week 3, she was selling 1,000 copies a day. Book bloggers discovered it. Book clubs picked it up. Black women on Twitter started recommending it with the hashtag Weight of Dreams. And Maya Thompson started building an empire that would eventually crush Chapman and Wells Publishing and teach Victoria Ashford the most expensive lesson of her career. But that reckoning was still 7 years away. For now, Maya just watched her sales numbers climb and smiled. 3 months after publication, The Weight of Dreams had sold 50,000 copies. 6 months in, 200,000 copies. Maya was earning $7,000 a month in royalties, more than her marketing salary. By month 9, the book hit #1 in contemporary fiction on Amazon, not #1 in African American fiction, not #1 in a subcategory, #1 overall. The readers Victoria Ashford claimed didn't exist in sufficient numbers had spoken. They bought the book, they reviewed it, they recommended it to friends, posted about it on social media, formed book clubs around it. The Weight of Dreams became a phenomenon through pure word of mouth. No publisher marketing, no bookstore placement, no traditional publicity machine. Just readers who'd been hungry for a story that reflected their lives, finally finding it. The traditional publishing industry noticed. Literary agents started emailing, "I'd love to represent your next book." Publishing houses reached out, "We're interested in acquiring your backlist and future works." Maya ignored them all. She'd learned the game. Self-publishing gave her 70% royalties. Traditional publishing would give her 10 to 15% while taking control of her covers, her pricing, her creative vision. She didn't need them anymore. By year 2, Maya had published her second novel, Roots and Wings. It debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. Print sales through Amazon's CreateSpace were strong enough that bookstores started stocking it, despite it being independently published. Barnes & Noble called her personally. Target added her to their book displays. Independent bookstores, the ones that actually cared about diverse voices, hosted sold-out events. The niche audience was buying books in mainstream numbers. The too ethnic story was resonating with readers of all backgrounds, but especially with Black women who'd never seen themselves reflected in commercial fiction before. By year 3, Maya had 3 books published. Combined sales, 8 million copies. She'd become a full-time author, earning $500,000 annually. She bought a house in Atlanta, hired an assistant, started a small publishing imprint to help other rejected authors. Year 4 brought the Netflix deal. A production company had been circling The Weight of Dreams for months. Maya's agent, she'd finally hired one, but only for film/TV rights, negotiated brilliantly. Netflix paid $12 million for the adaptation rights. The announcement made industry news. Self-published author lands 8-figure Netflix deal. Every rejection letter Maya had received was suddenly worth analyzing. How had 47 publishers missed this? How had Victoria Ashford, celebrated for her eye for commercial fiction, dismissed what became one of the decade's best-selling novels? The publishing industry started soul-searching. Articles appeared in Publishers Weekly. Did we miss the next big thing? The New York Times ran a piece. The gatekeepers got it wrong. How self-publishing is disrupting traditional publishing. Victoria Ashford's name appeared in several articles, not favorably. Writers shared their rejection stories. Many mentioned the same themes, being told they were too specific, too ethnic, needed broader appeal. The industry's systemic bias was becoming undeniable, and Maya Thompson was Exhibit A of how much money publishers were leaving on the table by dismissing diverse voices. By year 5, Maya's books had sold 15 million copies combined. She was earning $2 million annually. Her face appeared on magazine covers. She did interviews with NPR, Good Morning America, late-night talk shows. Every interviewer asked the same question. You were rejected 47 times. What kept you going? Maya's answer became famous. I knew my story mattered. The gatekeepers told me readers like me didn't exist in large enough numbers. I decided to find out if they were right. Turns out, we were there all along. We were just invisible to people who weren't looking. She never named Victoria Ashford publicly, never mentioned Chapman and Wells, but industry insiders knew. They'd heard the stories. They knew which editor had been particularly dismissive. Victoria's star had begun to dim. 2 of her recent acquisitions flopped. Authors she'd championed received lukewarm reviews. The books she passed on, like Maya's, became cautionary tales of editorial judgment failures. By year 6, Maya Thompson had become more than a best-selling author. She was a brand. Her publishing imprint, Thompson House, had launched 10 debut authors, all writers of color whose stories had been rejected by traditional publishers. 3 of them became bestsellers. Maya proved it wasn't a fluke. The audience existed. The hunger for diverse stories was real. Traditional publishing had just been too blind to see it. Meanwhile, Chapman and Wells Publishing was struggling. They'd made a series of bad acquisitions, chasing trends instead of building relationships with talented writers. Their best-selling authors were aging out or leaving for better contracts elsewhere. Younger readers weren't connecting with their list. Their revenue dropped 30% over 3 years. They laid off staff, closed their UK office, started looking for merger partners or potential buyers. Victoria Ashford was still there, but no longer as acquisitions editor. She'd been moved to a senior consulting role, industry code for demoted but too expensive to fire. Maya tracked it all. Not out of spite exactly, more like studying an opponent before a chess match. Because Maya had been quietly building capital, her book sales, her Netflix money, smart investments. She'd parlayed her success into a fortune estimated at $40 million. And she'd been watching Chapman and Wells circle the drain, waiting for the right moment. That moment came in year 7. Chapman and Wells' parent company announced they were selling the imprint. Too much debt, too little revenue, too many failed launches. The asking price was $85 million, steep for a struggling publisher, but the backlist had value. Several buyers emerged: a German media conglomerate, a private equity firm known for gutting companies, an online education startup looking to diversify, and Thompson House Publishing, represented by attorney Amanda Chen and CEO Maya Thompson. Maya's offer was $80 million, $5 million below asking, but with better terms for existing employees and authors. She promised to maintain the current staff, honor existing contracts, and invest in the backlist. The parent company accepted. On March 15, 2022, exactly 7 years after Victoria Ashford had told Maya her story was too ethnic to publish, Maya Thompson became owner of Chapman and Wells Publishing. The press release was professional, gracious even. Maya talked about her vision for the imprint, her commitment to diverse voices, her respect for Chapman and Wells's legacy. She didn't mention that she'd been rejected by this very publisher, didn't mention Victoria Ashford's phone call, didn't mention being told to write under a pseudonym and make her characters more ambiguous. She didn't have to. The industry knew. The writers knew. Victoria Ashford definitely knew. 3 days after the acquisition closed, Maya scheduled a meeting with all Chapman and Wells employees. The announcement had said she'd maintain current staff, but everyone knew restructuring was coming. Victoria Ashford received her meeting invitation via email. Monday, 2 p.m., Conference Room A, mandatory attendance. For the first time in 20 years at Chapman and Wells, Victoria was nervous about a meeting in her own building. Because the woman she'd dismissed as too ethnic, too niche, too unmarketable was now walking into that conference room as her boss. And Victoria had absolutely no idea whether Maya Thompson had a long memory. She was about to find out that Maya had kept every rejection letter, every dismissive comment, every suggestion that she make herself smaller, and now Maya owned the building, the imprint, and Victoria's future. The weekend before the Monday meeting, Victoria couldn't sleep. She pulled up old emails, searching for her correspondence with Maya Thompson from 2015. Had she been that harsh? Had she really said those things? She found the submission trail. the generic rejection. And then, God, she'd forgotten about the phone call. She'd told Maya her story was too ethnic, that it wasn't marketable, that she should write under a pseudonym, make her characters more ambiguous. Victoria read her own words and felt sick. At the time, she'd been so confident, so sure she was right about the market, about what readers wanted, about who could be a bestseller. Now, Maya Thompson had 3 books with 20 million combined sales, a Netflix deal, a publishing empire. And Victoria was sitting in her small Manhattan apartment, reading rejection emails she'd sent to the woman who now owned her career. Sunday night, Victoria drafted a resignation letter. Maybe that was the play. Quit before the inevitable firing, keep some dignity, get a head start on the job search. But then she thought about the mortgage, the lifestyle she'd built, the years in this industry. At 52, starting over wasn't easy. And truth was, nobody was hiring. The industry was contracting. AI was threatening editorial jobs. She couldn't afford to quit. So Monday morning, Victoria Ashford walked into Chapman & Wells, now officially Thompson House's New York acquisition, and waited for her reckoning. Conference room A was packed, 63 employees ranging from assistants to senior editors to marketing staff. Everyone was nervous, whispering about buyouts, severance packages, which departments would be cut. At 2 p.m. exactly, Maya Thompson entered. She looked different than Victoria remembered from that author photo 7 years ago. More polished, more confident, designer suit, elegant jewelry, the bearing of someone who'd built an empire from nothing. Maya stood at the front of the room, waiting for silence. "Thank you all for coming. I'm Maya Thompson, your new owner. Some of you may know my work as an author. Some of you may remember that I submitted to this house 7 years ago. I was rejected, told my story wasn't marketable, wasn't universal enough, was too niche for mainstream success." Eyes darted around the room, everyone wondering who'd sent that rejection. "I'm not here for revenge," Maya continued. "I'm here to save this imprint and make it profitable again. That requires changes. It also requires honesty about why Chapman & Wells has been failing." She pulled up a slide, financial data showing declining sales and market share. For the past decade, this house has been chasing trends instead of finding voices, publishing safe instead of bold, prioritizing marketability over excellence. That strategy failed. Your sales numbers prove it. Another slide, comparison data showing Thompson House's success versus Chapman & Wells's decline. Meanwhile, independent publishers, diverse imprints, and self-published authors have been dominating. Why? Because they're telling stories that traditional publishing decided weren't universal enough. They're finding audiences that houses like this one claimed didn't exist in sufficient numbers. Maya looked directly at Victoria. "Some of you made those decisions based on data, some based on bias. Either way, the results speak for themselves. You left billions of dollars on the table by dismissing diverse voices." The room was silent. Victoria felt every eye on her, even though Maya hadn't named her. "So here's what happens next," Maya said. "Every editor in this room will be evaluated. Your acquisition history, your judgment calls, your ability to identify commercial potential. If you've been consistently wrong about what readers want, you won't be here next month. If you've been right but unsupported by marketing or management, we'll talk about how to better position you." She clicked to the next slide. New acquisitions Thompson House had already lined up. "We're pivoting toward voices this house has historically ignored. That doesn't mean we're abandoning your existing authors or suddenly only publishing one type of book. It means we're expanding our definition of mainstream and universal. If you can't adapt to that vision, we'll help you transition out with dignity and severance." Meeting over. Everyone filed out, buzzing with anxiety and speculation. Victoria stayed seated. Maya was packing up her laptop, clearly aware Victoria was still there. "Ms. Ashford," Maya said without looking up. "My office. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Then she left. Victoria sat alone in conference room A in the building where she'd worked for 20 years and finally understood that her comfortable world was over. Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. Victoria knocked on Maya's office door. "Come in." Maya sat behind the desk, reviewing documents. She gestured to the chair. Victoria sat, feeling like an author at a pitch meeting. Ms. Ashford, I've reviewed your acquisition history. You've acquired 43 books. 12 were successful. 31 lost money. Your hit rate is 28%, below industry average. Victoria swallowed. The market has been challenging. Your colleagues average 35 to 40%. The problem isn't the market, it's your judgment. Maya slid a document forward. These are manuscripts you rejected that became bestsellers elsewhere. Victoria scanned the list. 12 titles, all by authors of color, all stories she deemed too niche. Notice a pattern? Maya asked. Victoria did. Yes. You didn't just miss the market trend. You actively worked against it. You told authors to make characters more ambiguous. You rejected stories for being too ethnic. You cost this house millions. Maya leaned forward. Do you remember our phone call in 2015? Victoria's stomach dropped. Yes. Tell me what you said. Maya, I was wrong. Tell me what you said. Victoria took a breath. I told you your manuscript wasn't marketable, that it was too ethnic, that you should write under a pseudonym and make characters more ambiguous. That mainstream America wouldn't buy books about your demographic. You told me to choose, adapt or stay unpublished. Yes. I chose a third option. I proved you wrong. Maya's voice was steel. If you'd acquired my book, Chapman and Wells would have published a 20 million copy bestseller. This imprint would be profitable instead of bankrupt. Victoria had no response. But more importantly, I want you to understand what you almost cost me. I spent weeks questioning myself. You almost convinced me my voice didn't matter. I never meant. You meant exactly what you said. You believed it, and that belief hurt every author you rejected based on those same assumptions. Maya stood. You have two options. Option 1, resign today. 3-month severance, neutral reference. Victoria felt tears coming. Option 2, you stay. But as assistant editor, $55,000 starting salary. You'll work under Marcus Chen, attend sensitivity training, and relearn this industry from scratch. Victoria stared. A junior position? At a quarter of my salary? I want you to learn that your assumptions were wrong. You can learn unemployed or you can learn here. Your choice. Why offer me that? After what I did. Because firing you is easy. Teaching you is harder, but more valuable. If you genuinely change, you'll be better for having failed. If you can't, you'll be gone in 6 months. Victoria looked at the woman she'd dismissed. Maya could simply destroy her career. Instead, she offered a brutal but fair choice, pride or growth. The assistant position, I'll take it. You're sure? Everyone will know. That's humiliating. Less humiliating than being wrong for 7 years and too proud to admit it. Maya nodded. Marcus expects you Monday. And Victoria? The moment you fall back into old patterns, you're done. No second chances. Understood. Victoria stood to leave, then paused. Why didn't you just let this company die? Because that would hurt the authors under contract, the employees, the readers who loved parts of your backlist. This isn't about destruction, it's about transformation. 6 months later, Victoria was still there, working under Marcus Chen. The pay cut hurt. The demotion stung. But she was learning. Marcus made her read manuscripts without checking author bios first, taught her to see her biases, recognize when not marketable meant not familiar to me. She read everything. Indigenous authors, disabled writers, immigrant stories, books she'd have rejected automatically before. And she started seeing what she'd missed, the brilliant voices, the commercial potential in stories traditional publishing had ignored. Month 5, she acquired her first book, a contemporary romance by a Latina author. Victoria's old self would have passed. Her new self recognized what readers wanted. The book sold 200,000 copies. By month 9, Victoria had acquired 4 books, all by authors of color. 3 became profitable. Maya noticed. You're doing better. That's growth. I had a good teacher. And a hard lesson. The lesson isn't over. Every day you'll face manuscripts that challenge your instincts. The question is whether you've truly changed. I've changed. I read my old rejection letters sometimes, including yours. I barely recognize that person. Good. Because that person almost cost you everything, and almost cost literature some of its best voices. 1 year after the acquisition, Thompson House celebrated. 15 debut authors published, 8 hit bestseller lists, revenue up 40%. The imprint was profitable. At the party, a young black author approached Victoria. "Ms. Ashford, thank you. You believed in my book when I thought no one would." Victoria smiled. "Your story deserves to be read." After the author left, Maya appeared beside Victoria. "You've come far from telling authors to use pseudonyms. I'll never live that down, will I?" "No, but you don't have to. You just have to keep being better." Victoria nodded. "I'm trying. Every day." "I know. That's why you're still here." Maya walked away, leaving Victoria at the party celebrating authors she once would have rejected. Victoria Ashford had learned the most expensive lesson of her career: assumptions about whose stories matter, whose voices deserve amplification. Those assumptions don't just hurt the people you reject, they hurt the industry, the readers, and ultimately yourself. She couldn't undo the past, couldn't unreject the manuscripts she'd dismissed, couldn't give back the years Maya had fought alone, but she could do better going forward. And in an industry finally reckoning with its gatekeeping failures, that had to be enough.